Hello and welcome to Agents of Nonprofit. My name is Alexander Lapa, and I'm here to speak with everyday superheroes helping nonprofits. Joining me today is Amina Mohamed to talk about her organization, Camera for Girls. Amina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So as we're starting the conversation, I was hoping you could share with us, how did you get started working in the nonprofit industry? I also sometimes call this your superhero origin story.
Yeah, okay, great. I'll be honest, I never said, hey, I'm going to go and work in the nonprofit industry. I just fell into it like many other people. I actually came from a background of filmmaking, storytelling, photography. And my family and I are refugees to Canada from Uganda. We had come in 1972 after Idi Amin had thrown all the Indian Asians out of the country. And I always was curious, what was our origin story? You know, how did we land in Canada? Who am I and why am I the person I am? What are those stories that I'm hearing from my parents of how amazing Uganda was? Are they true? So in 2007, I got the opportunity to go back to do a documentary. I wanted to tell the story of the Indians who were returning to claim their properties that had been taken. And in the journey, I was meeting many people who had struggled, who had suffered, while we had, the benefits of living in a free world, in a free country where education was free, healthcare is free. Of course, it comes for your taxes, but life is, democratic. I was meeting young women, as young as 14, who was telling me they were married off because their families could not afford education or would not educate them as a girl. And that whole gender inequality started to raise up as an issue. And growing up in Canada, where you can be or do anything regardless of your gender, it was really a eye-awakening moment for me. And in the back of my head, I always had it, I want to go back to Uganda and do something, but I just didn't know what. And so I left film and television after 15 amazing years, and I went into a completely different industry in finances. But something in the back of my mind kept on saying, I have to go back, I have to go back, I have to do something. So I had reached out to a journalist that I knew, and I said, hey, I want to go to the north of Uganda, and I want to teach young people who had struggled under the Joseph Kony War photography. And he said, you're going all about this wrong. You need to teach young women who are trying to get into the journalism industry. And I said, why would they need me? And he said, because they're told they need to have a camera and know how to use it to get a job. And I went to university, but I was still able to get a job with no skills. And that's the journey of men and women in this industry. And I was like, bingo. So in 2018, I went to Uganda. I begged, borrowed, and stole, took my savings, collected 15 cameras, and off I went to see if this was even a thing. And 2 weeks after finishing our first training, and it wasn't even cameras for girls at that point, it was under my travel company that I had started, a girl wrote to me and said, because of you, because of the gift of the camera that I got and the fact that I could show my editor that I could now take photos to accompany the articles I was writing, I was put on salary. I had a job when I came to see you, when I came to the program, but they weren't paying me. And now I'm on salary and I will get published 4 times a year, and 4 times a week rather. And a year later, her mom's roof flew off in a storm. And she was not only able to pay for that, but now she supports her family, herself, and so on. And the average person will support 5 other family members. So imagine the ripple effect of that. And that told me I was onto something. And the next year we registered and we finally got charity status in 2021. And and here we are. So we're in Uganda. I just came home like a couple of weeks ago from training 60 women. So that was carrying 60 cameras to Uganda by myself. And there's a lot more behind that story, but we're growing. And so we're in Uganda and Tanzania now, and hopefully in Kenya next year.
That is an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you went from 15 cameras to 60 cameras. The geek in me has to ask the question, are these digital cameras or are they old school?
Okay. Oh, no. Yeah, they can't afford film. And film it's like very hard to find a place to get them processed. So no, they're digital. We started with point and shoots, anything I could get. And we've been using Canon G1X. And this last 60, because we got a grant from Estee Lauder, we were able to buy 60 mirrorless cameras for the M100s, R100s, yeah, Canons.
Just to visualize that, are these the small compact ones, or these are more the bigger ones like you see in Nikon?
They're not DSLRs,
right?
But they're a step underneath that.
Okay.
So because these girls are just learning photography, so to give them, like if you take the analogy of a, Volkswagen versus a Porsche, you got to start somewhere.
Right. Okay. So it's amazing that you were able to take actually your passion for filmmaking, for photos and television, and your overcome desire to help people, to be able to combine those two together and really make things work. Like, I can't imagine if, why do you think it is so powerful for women to be able to just leverage something, a tool as simple as a camera, to be able to elevate their economic and social status and be able to help so many other people?
Not only in our work, but you see it everywhere. Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, you name a country. Women are told their voices don't matter. Women are told, well, you don't belong here in the job. You belong, in the bedroom, on your back, in the kitchen, cooking, taking care of the kids, farming, doing all the menial chores. But they're never given an opportunity to shine on the stage. That it's the proverbial glass ceiling. But when you take it into a developing world and you see women having to do childcare, home care, taking care of the homestead, their families, their husbands' families, and so on and so on, and they never have time for themselves, where are their voices getting promoted? Where are the women's, issues and challenges in their local communities being told? They cannot be told by men who don't understand their issues. They have to be told by women who do understand because they've walked in their feet. So when you put a camera in the hands of these women, and the first time they take a shot or a photo and they see, oh my God, I did that, looking through my eyes, which represents not just how I feel about living in this community or this world, but the thousands of women I'm representing out there. It's such a powerful moment. And as she develops her skill and she now starts to write those stories from the heart, I'll give you an example. Right now, we've got a young woman who was in our first training in 2018, and she has struggled for years. She's a mom of 3 kids, and we have a mentorship program. So I paired her up with a mentor in the US so she could not only learn the marketing behind what she was doing, which was digital media, but how do I get my voice out there? So Tiffany is the mentor who's now taken Sharon through that journey, and then turned around and said to Sharon, you know what, why don't we start a Letters from Uganda series? I'll promote it on my LinkedIn to the 20,000 followers I have. You write an article a week. I pay you, but not in Ugandan shillings, because we started a job creation program, in US dollars. Now imagine the impact of that monthly payment that Sharon is making. Not only is she now able to get herself out of poverty, she can buy the tools and the trainings that she needs to further her career. She can put her 3 kids through education, because education is not free. She can buy them clothing, buy them proper, nutritious food, and she can support her family, and she can put money away for a rainy day. And so we don't just look at it as photography and a camera, but what does that camera actually do for a woman? It teaches her. It helps her to get a job. It helps her to build sustainable financial safety net. It allows her to support her family, her kids. And it's the ripple effect. That camera is a ripple effect. And as long as that girl or that woman is willing to walk through the door and do the hard work, because it's not, it's teach a man to fish. It's not give a man to fish, or a woman in this instance, right? And they have to do the work. It's not, hey, here's a camera, use it if you want. No, no, no. They have to earn it because there's so many girls behind them who want this opportunity and they've been chosen. So they also have to, people look at things that sometimes are free as is not as valuable. And we're constantly telling them, this is your opening to the rest of the world. You open, you walk through that door, that camera will open up opportunities for you, as is the case with Sharon.
I have a lot of questions, but I want to start with some logistical ones. How do women apply for the program? Can you tell me a bit more about the various types of programs that you have, the eligibility factor and the selection factor?
Okay. So let's start with the basics. We, in each country that we go to, we partner up with university journalism programs. So we find a university that's offering not just any journalism program, but a high-end journal. They're turning out proper women with skills. Challenge with the universities, and they will admit this, is they're theoretical in nature. Very few practical skills. So you're turning out girls or youth out into the world with no practical skills. So that's what we were finding. So that's where we come in. We fill in that practical gap. And so we recruit our students through there. It's a 40 question application, because we want to make sure that we're not just taking any girl. We're taking girls who are either in their third or fourth year or have graduated but can't find work simply because they're lacking the camera and the skills. And then from there, so that's for our in-person year-long program. It's called our 4-phase program. And it starts with a 4-day workshop in the country where the girl gets her camera. And in the first 3 days in the classroom, she's learning how to use that camera, but she's also learning the technical skills behind it. The exposure triangle, the composition, the sensors, everything you need to know about the camera and how to use it. On the 4th day, we go into community and we partner with an NGO. So if you look at the picture behind me right now, I know your guests can't see this, but this is one of our NGO partners. We worked with them in 2021 when we came back from COVID, and again this year. And our girls come together with the girls that they support, and they learn how to get in the field using their photography and ethical storytelling skills to tell the story of this NGO partner and the girls that they work with. And that starts to build their portfolio. That's 4 days in the classroom. From there, we jump online. I teach every Friday on Zoom, and the girls have a private WhatsApp community. They have to send in 10 photos at least every 2 weeks to show me that they are doing the work, that they're advancing in their photography, and a monthly assignment, which again is all about portfolio building. Because when they leave Cameras for Girls, they can either go the route of, I'm going to try and go for a job with my portfolio as it is, or I'm going to enter your 6-month mentorship program so I get, more skill building, more support from a one-on-one mentor before I hit the job market. We've got 80% success rate from this program of all the girls who have come through. And that's to date, 124 in Uganda, 25 in Tanzania, and 10 in South Africa. And that's just through our online, through our 4-phase year-long program. Our second program is a compendium to this. When I couldn't get back to Uganda because of COVID, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't let this die. So I sat down and built our online learning hub. This is where it's video-based. They can learn everything from photography training, and there's beginner to advanced, business skills, like how do I build a business plan? How do I build a CV? How do I sit for an interview? How do I build a LinkedIn profile and network with it? And so on, so on, so on, so on. Then we got a mental health support section. And then we've got our weekly trainings that we do on Zoom, which live on this platform. So girls across Africa and now the MENA region can access this for free, learn to their schedules, and then, join our Friday trainings. and keep on keeping on. And that I opened up to everybody, because we might not be able to offer every girl a camera or, a tool to learn with. She has to come in with that. But when you can open the door to learning from any woman anywhere, build her a community and show her that she's not alone, like, it's just, I get the chills even thinking about what we've been able to do. Because when you get girls who come to you and say, nobody believed in me, nobody gave me an opportunity, I can't afford training, but I really want to learn. And now I'm in a community of others who are learning, and I can see that I'm not alone. It's quite something.
It must be magical.
It is. And then our third program, which we launched last year, was the Train the Trainer program. And we only doing this every couple years. And this is in Uganda. What we did was we took 5 former students from our year-long program who had been through our program, had graduated, and were now working as either photographers or journalists or storytellers. And we took them through an 8 months intensive, and I mean intensive, training where they could become me. Because I am one person, and believe it or not, I cannot do it all. And so I'm the executive director. I do everything because we're very small. And so to build sustainability as we build out on the continent, I wanted it to be led by the young women in our cohort. And so this 60 women that we just trained in Uganda were because I and them joined together to teach them in 4 separate cohorts. So it was 4 back-to-back workshops. It was crazy. But it would not have been possible if I had not those trainers who really stepped into their game and who have built up that confidence muscle of not only advanced photography, advanced ethical storytelling skills, but they were impacted by leadership training with a partner, Phenomenal Women Global, started out of Switzerland, but based in Uganda, and Toastmasters to get them to learn how to public speak in front of their peers. Can't teach if you're going to talk like this. You got to use your voice and your intonation, and you got to get in it, and you got to be energetic, because if you're not showing up for your peers, how are they going to have belief in you that you can lead them through this training? And it was beyond my wildest dreams. And I have to give a shout out that all of this was possible because of Estee Lauder and Vital Voices support, which we had applied for and won that grant. So that's our third. And our last one, which we just started, was our job creation program, which is the story I told you of Sharon and Tiffany. But now we are pitching a major funder, name unknown, I will not say. And if we get this, we'll be able to put 24 women a year over 3 years to work in Uganda in US dollars. So wish us luck. So it's a lot. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot.
But it's all interchangeable. It all feeds into, programming and giving women and girls tools and skills that they can use anywhere. Because everything is about storytelling these days. You need storytelling for everything. But I'll take it a step further. It's about ethical storytelling. And I guess we're going to get into that in a few minutes, but I'll leave it there.
Hey, Alex here. I want to take a brief moment and thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode so far, please consider sharing it with someone who would also benefit from its insights. It's these kinds of referrals that really help the show grow. You can also show your support by making a small donation. I don't do corporate sponsorships or product placements, so I rely on your support to keep the show going. You can visit my website, agentsofnonprofit.com, and click Support Us in the top menu. Thank you kindly. That was actually where I was going to go exactly next, because you mentioned it now 3 times. I'm keeping notes here. Ethical storytelling. So maybe you could tell, I know that storytelling is very powerful. Some of us know why, some don't. Maybe we start at the high level. Why do you think in general, just storytelling without necessarily being ethical or not is so powerful?
Let's look at that eons ago, right? The caveman drawing pictures on the wall. That was storytelling. That was describing their culture, their way of life, their way of being. And when we tell stories to people that is not steeped in data, like numbers and metrics and all of this, and we can touch them on a visceral level through storytelling, it makes a difference. If you tell somebody, hey, 80% of our students are working, versus, hey, did you know that Cameras for Girls, our program, our 4-phase program has now employed 80%? Okay, let me go back. If you tell somebody that, hey, 80% of our girls are working, versus at Cameras for Girls, we give our girls a 4-phase year-long program, and over 80% of those graduates come out with skills that allow them to be employed, which makes more of a difference. You're giving context on the one hand, but then you can go even further, right? Storytelling can get big or small, the more descriptive you are, where data and metrics don't allow you to be as descriptive. It's just data. So you have to wrap that data in storytelling to really get at the heart of what somebody's doing, but to touch that person to say, oh, I want to learn more. I want to know more. Tell me more, right? It's always that leaving them and tell me more. Because when when they say, tell me more, or they're interested, you've got them. You've got them hooked, right? We see storytelling everywhere, and there's good, bad, and the ugly of storytelling, right? And sadly, we're seeing a lot of, I don't know how to say this politely, but the political crap that's out there steeped in bad storytelling. But sometimes the bad draws people in more than the good. We always want, our minds want to see, oh my God, that crime story, that seems so good. Yet we'll give it over a heartfelt story, right? Because our people are, where the world is going. They're more interested in these nuances, and storytelling can lead you down one path or the other. And it's just, then when you go higher, for us, ethical storytelling, that's where we shine. So I'm an ethical storytelling practitioner. And what that means is I teach organizations or even people about the language they use. So for instance, at Cameras for Girls, we do not use empower. We do not use we serve. We do not use beneficiary, and so on. Why? Because they are steeped in colonial language models. And especially as somebody who came from Africa and we left Uganda because Idi Amin had kicked us out for those colonial mindsets, right? I'm very cognizant of not being a NGO or an organization or a nonprofit or whatever you want to title us, going in and saying, you want our help, you need to do this, this, and this, or you need to be this, this, and this. We are always asking, what is it that you need to succeed so we can build it for you, instead of telling you what we think you need. There's a huge difference. And when it comes to ethical storytelling, it gets even more nuanced. How do you want to be represented? Do you want us to call the girls we serve our beneficiaries? Or do you want us to refer to you as, we partner with young women, we partner with universities, we collaborate with? We do not use empower, like I mentioned, we use empower. And it's not in the dictionary, but it should be. I think there's an application form somewhere out there where you can apply to put certain words in the dictionary. We all have the power within. We're just waiting, or we're just needing somebody to help us unlock it. Empower means that they don't have any power at all, and that we are in control of that power, whether they get that power or not. And so we're very, very, very careful about this. And I actually wrote about this again today on my on LinkedIn in my blog, because I see this word so overused. And I sat down on my website and I'm talking about it, and then I'm like, actually, have we even gone back since we got this website up 3 years ago and gone and see how many times it was there? And I was shocked that I still had it on my website, right? And you have to check yourself, right? You might be talking about something and passionate about something, changing something, but you got to also check yourself. And I do that a lot with our work. Are we walking the talk?
In regards to the dictionary, as far as I know, the dictionary doesn't necessarily just define words. The words are added based on usage, and the dictionary changes based on how we use words. Like,
Hmm.
so the more we use words, the more it becomes commonplace. The more you can share this word with others and get them using it, then there's a eventual trickle effect to get that into the dictionary itself, as opposed to formally applying for it.
I got to
So
keep on going then.
let's just keep using that word, share that word
Exactly.
in power, and then hopefully at one point in time it'll be
It'll be
commonplace
there.
that it'll be added to the dictionary by
Uh,
default.
exactly.
The word serve, though, is interesting to me because I use that word very often.
Hmm.
That I serve my clients, I serve the nonprofit industry.
Hmm.
Is that
I think it's in context, though,
okay? Yeah.
because I'm working in the developing world, right? And traditionally, NGOs or developmental organizations have always come in and say, we're serving this population or we're serving this need. But without asking, is that actually your place to do so, right? And what are you serving? Because there's always something at the end of that where I'm serving you, but I want something in return. So is it truly serving? No.
I would say that would not be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe if you're giving more than you're receiving, maybe that could still be seen as served.
But it doesn't happen that way, unfortunately.
So I was wondering if you can share some examples of, because so I agree on the ethical storytelling, and I got the definition, but I was wondering if you can share a story or about it, like or examples of what two situations, or sorry, one situation where you would share it in a non-ethical way, or non-ethical way meaning not necessarily a unethical way, but a non-ethical way, and then an ethical way. Is there a way to just what are the principles or characteristics of ethical storytelling? I guess is the question I'm trying to ask.
Why don't I give you an example of what I did a couple of years ago? I worked with an organization in the US to change the way they were telling stories in the refugee settlements. So they are a US organization that works with young women to put them through school. These young women come from refugee settlements across East Africa. And so I suggested to them that, hey, why don't we get together? And what they were complaining about was that they kept on having to hire photographers to tell the stories of these girls who always had a different way of telling the story. At the end of the day, they were producing a lot of, for lack of a better term, poverty porn, right? We've seen it. The child on the dirt floor, tears, naked, buzzing flies. What does it remind you of? Ethiopian famine. But there's so many different ways to show poverty in hope, not despair. So I had a talk with them. And so what we agreed upon is that we would bring all of their people who were responsible for telling story into Uganda, in northern Uganda, and we would gather over 3 days in the classroom, and I would run them through the same ethical storytelling and training I do for Cameras for Girls. And it was a huge success because their staff, number one, didn't know how to take good photos or even operate the camera. They were using really old phones. So we brought them each a camera. Then we taught them how to use it. Then we taught them the ethics around, how do we actually go into a refugee settlement and ask for permission. So, ethical storytelling is based on participatory filmmaking photography, meaning both parties are participation together, but it's about consent at the end of the day. How are you explaining and getting consent? So in the 3 days we spent in the classroom, fourth day, we went into a refugee settlement. So during the day, we spent with a young girl. She was 15, beautiful pinafore, very clean, shiny shoes, happy smile, laughing and talking with her friends. We photographed her for a couple of hours, practicing consent, because consent is, it's not, here's my consent form, sign it. It is and explaining in their language of understanding what is actually written on this consent form. What are they giving consent to? Where is it going to be seen? How is it going to be used? What are their rights to say no? Even after shooting with them for, however long, they have the right to say no. And so all of these things come into practice. We go back with this girl to the refugee settlement. And I instructed the staff that we had permission at the school, given by the school before we got there, but we saw lots of other girls that we also had to consent from. The same thing applies here, but now we're in a refugee settlement. Put your cameras down in your bags. We walk through without our camera. Why? Because we haven't gotten to, the meandering walk we have to take, and everybody's got their little settlement within the camp. We're not talking to each person, and we're not able to document how they live without talking to them and explaining what we're going to be doing there. So we walked with Elizabeth. We get to her little camp. The week before, 15 members of her family had to walk back to South Sudan because there was no food. And yet there's UNHCR signs everywhere showing their support. And it was an eye-opening experience for me. So, and I still have nightmares to today to what I saw. And so she changed from her school uniform into her torn smock, dirty, torn. Her demeanor changed. Her family members gathered, and through a translator, I explained what we were doing there. Cameras have still not come out of the bag. And so every staff member had to understand number one, what we were doing there, where we were allowed to shoot, where we were not allowed to shoot. So we asked her, what do you not want us to photograph? And she told us, the latrine sits next to where we cook. I don't want you photographing the latrine. 10 of them lived in this one small rudimentary shack. Some on the floor, some on cots, some together. It was like strung up. It was, I was like, how do you even fit in there? She started to cry at one moment, and this was during the interview portion. So we've done the consent. I'm given freedom to shoot anything. We finish with her. She starts to cry, and instead of getting her crying, I got the CEO of the organization, who had just gone to give her a hug, the photograph of them too, because we don't have to see her tears to know she's in distress. But people will go for the tears because why? Oh, I can get something better with, on Instagram. People are going to react to this better. It's not about Instagram, people. It's about being respectful and honorable to the people that you are in charge of documenting. So while I'm documenting, a man from a different tribe runs up to me and he starts to take off unbutton his pants. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I didn't know what was happening. And he had a knife wound from the chest down to below his sternum, below his belly button, that had been fresh. And he had a bullet still in his hip. So he wanted me to take photos of him so that I could go and get him help. And I didn't even know how, but I tried, and I was shut down. And I didn't take pictures of the wounds with his face. I took it chin down, because if I show him and now I'm saying, hey, I need help for this man, he would be further ostracized in the community. And so you have to be careful when it comes to storytelling. You want the story, but at what risk? And who are you putting at risk? Or who are you not giving graciousness to? Who are you not being human with? It's their story, it's not yours. They're giving you the right to tell their story. So honor it with their restrictions. And there's the difference. And so, I'm very careful about the images I take, where I show them. I don't put things on my Instagram. I put them on my portfolio, or I show them to my students, because that's my purpose in taking photos, so that they can learn through me. So a big part of our curriculum is about ethical storytelling, because even if they come from those communities, they are still having to document stories that can be very dangerous. I'll give you a very quick example. Years ago, a Canadian journalist was tasked with taking photos of a women's shelter who was celebrating being in business for 25 years. Nobody knew where this shelter was, because that's the whole purpose of a women's shelter, to keep them safe. Not only did he break the laws of ethics, but so what he did was he found one of the women with her children to sit for an interview. And the behind of her was a sign that nobody saw, very small, saying the name of the thing, supported by the sponsor. He put that in the shot. The woman's husband tracked her down, murdered her, and now those 2 kids that she had were left orphans. He was fired from his job, thankfully. But how far you can break it for a story and at whose risk. So that's what ethical storytelling, informed consent, is there to protect the person you're telling the story of.
Yeah, I can't imagine how many emotional, both positive and negative.
Yeah, there's things that haunt me, and that I've seen that I've been, but then there's amazing people and stories that I've also witnessed and been privileged to shoot that, is just like uplifting.
Maybe on a more, just because it's feeling a bit heavy at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get positive.
Yeah, I want to get to the positive story first. I was hoping maybe you could start though by sharing maybe a challenge you have or have had with the organization. Like there must be a lot of logistical stuff. There's partnerships we talked about. There's getting cameras, finding people, all that kind of stuff. Is there any one particular challenge, and then how you overcame that challenge kind of story you'd like to share?
Well, there's constant challenges, in this industry, right? If you're one woman led like me, where, women led organizations get less than 2% of funding, and it's a stat. And if you're a woman of color, you get even less than that. Fundraising is hard, and doing it, while you're trying to run an organization is even harder. So we're building, we look on the outside like, oh my God, look how big they are. But we're not. We're still one person led. And that continues to be a stranglehold on me as a founder, but something that also spurs me into action. You can't give up. You just got to keep going, because at the end, behind that are so many girls who are relying on you to be successful. We have still struggled to get a camera sponsor. We had Canon for a little bit, but then COVID came and their whole mandate changed, like many companies, and they could no longer afford to do, support for internationally based charities. Like we're Canadian charity, but internationally focused. So, but the one thing I will say is, having not come from this industry, a challenge was when I started, how the hell do I even start a, charity? Like, how do I even run this? How do I learn about strategic planning, about budgeting, about all the things you need to know to run a charity successfully? And I overcame that by being a good networker, by talking to people, by being curious, by, taking copious courses, but not just going to, webinars and seminars, actually doing. And so I'm proud that I've got everything we've ever need. Our policies are all there. Our strategic plan gets reviewed and updated. Just to make sure that we're on track, 1, 5, 10 years. Our budget is, everything we need is locked, right? Locked, ready, and to go. I meet so many people who are new to this industry or who've been doing it many years and don't have any of those things in place. And so I don't treat Cameras for Girls like a charity. I treat it like a business. It is a business at the end of the day. You got to run it like a business. And so when I am lacking on this side, I'm like, okay, where do I go to learn about this? Or what group do I need to, tap into, or what training? And it's not just, okay, well, I learned that, it'll sit here. No, it's got to be about the doing. Because if you don't do, you don't grow. And so we've just also managed to, and yes, I'm dropping the bomb here, or the announcement, we have just managed to get our nonprofit status in Uganda, which I'm very proud of. And so I'm doing the same thing for Uganda now, building out that team, building out the board, building out all of our, policies, documents, everything that we need for that, while trying to fundraise and build everything else. So it's a lot. It is a lot. But one day we will have that team that I so need. So if there's funders out there, hey, help us, capacity funding. Because with capacity funding, we can do so much more, serve so many more, not serve. So yeah, I said it myself. We can support so many more women to get the lives they deserve. they deserve.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur myself, I understand that the challenge of running a business is always there on top of what your actual work of trying to move the mission forward. So I appreciate that. We also spoke about, or I wanted to talk about a success story. Maybe you could share a quick story, something that, because with all these, with the need to be resilient and with all these stories that sometimes can bring us down, and there must be something that, there must be many stories that keep you moving forward and bringing you up. Could you share one of them with us?
I think our biggest to date is, and I've mentioned them already, is Estee Lauder and Vital Voices. So I might tie that in. Is 2 years ago, I started my journey with Vital Voices, which is an organization in Washington to help women build up their leadership skills, women from across the world. And so I took their initial leadership training, and then I was invited to apply for the Leadership Summit in Washington last March. I was chosen out of one of 50 women out of 300 applicants. From there, Vital Voices partnered with Estee Lauder. Estee Lauder opened up a grant. 60 women who run nonprofits across the world applied. I was chosen as one of 4, the only North American. We got 50,000 US. That was our biggest grant to date, which allowed us to do the second half of the Train the Trainer and launch the 60 women that we just trained. And so I caught that as a success, because when you sign up for something, you never know where it's going to lead. And the leadership skills that I gained from it, but also the funding opportunities and the doors it's opened since, just continue to be that ripple effect of success. And so I'm going to continue to ride on it as long as it lasts.
So keeping with the superhero theme, I was wondering if you had a superpower, something to change in the environment that you're in, what would it be?
I had to think about this one, and it's really hard, but if I could have one superpower, it would be to change gender equality for all. It really would. Women still in 2025 struggle to have a voice. And one of the things about the leadership journey was, what's your North Star? And I didn't know what my North Star was. I thought it was teaching photography until I delved deeper. It was building up voices for women. There's women who are stifled, who are not allowed to use their voices, who are not allowed to say nothing. And yet they have so much to say. And I think that would be my superpower, imparting that knowledge or that gift to them to say, like the super fairy, there, you got a voice. You can now use it.
Love it. As I'm looking at the clock, I wanted to know if you could share what is in your short-term future. Like, is there something that you are able to share that, because I know there's a couple of things you mentioned you can't quite share yet, which is good news. I'm taking it as, at least. But is there something you can share, or a plan that you have that you'd like to see happen with your organization within the next, 2, 3, 5 years?
Yeah. Couple things. We are putting a plan together to build a team. We are going to be building on our 3rd cohort for Tanzania, hopefully before the end of the year, and expanding to Kenya next year. And that will hopefully be with Aga Khan University, which is a major university in the journalism space. And we're also going to be building up Uganda and finding a team to lead that, so that I can lead Canada and we can work together to the common goal.
Awesome. This has been very emotional and then very impactful too. I'm really happy you came on and shared your story. For the funders that are hoping to reach out to you, or other people who are interested in learning more, where can they contact you?
You can find us at camerasforgirls.org, or and our socials on LinkedIn and Instagram at Cameras for Girls.
Amina, thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. This was amazing.
All right, that's it for today. I'm Alexander Lapa, and I hope you join me again in the next Agents of Nonprofit.